something, going back to the thing that how the society drives the markets, uh, there are such amazing tonics, botanical tonics, and I don't mean the Schweppes canned ones,
Mm,
such beautiful, flavorful, like, with complex flavors, things like tonics. Can you imagine the Blinkit? In 15 minutes, it's delivering me non-alcoholic wine. Jacob's Creek, not some random shady brand. But I'm saying these big brands are realizing where, a certain section of our population is going.
mm.
And things like zero proof gin, zero proof vodka, and things like non-alcoholic wine, things like kombucha.
The
This
non-alcoholic
beverage
beer.
market is
Yeah.
exploding,
Are those good for you though? Since you brought that up, so the
Totally fine.
zero. So what is a? I think what does it do to
See, it
you?
could just be a fermented something. I haven't honestly looked up the label
Mm,
because I'm not a big fan of wine anyway. So whether even with alcohol, without, I've not been much into it.
yeah,
But I like brewing my own kombucha, and I do all kinds of different. My half of my kitchen is just like multiple bottles of different stages of fermentation
like
and
a
stuff.
laboratory kind of thing.
Yeah,
Nice.
laboratory. So, but anything which is not having alcohol is definitely better than, something with alcohol. So I wouldn't
Mm.
even compare the two.
The
And
reason I ask is, when you say Diet Coke and Coke, it's proven that Diet Coke is maybe as bad as Coke. But like,
not really, not really. If you're having just one can of, if it's very hot now outside and I'm just having a craving for some kind of cola, diet cola over cola any day.
any day. Okay, cool.
Any day.
Sorry, I was mistaken because I thought the
And
replacement was
it
sugar.
depends, like one can, two cans at the most. It's not, because that whatever tiny bit of aspartame or whatever other non-sugar sweetener is being used in that diet cola drink, it is not more dangerous than the 9 spoons of sugar which is in a regular can, 9 to 10 spoons in a regular can of cola. Will you ever imagine drinking a cup of tea or coffee with 10 spoons of sugar in it?
Mm. Never.
We
Yeah.
never, like never, we can never do that, right? Like not even the person with the giantest sweet tooth would do that. So
Yeah. It's
I
not. It's
feel,
unpalatable, which is a strange thing, right? It's just
yeah.
you can't
But here there's so much
stomach it.
acid, like phosphoric acid. There are so many other ingredients which kind of, blunt the edge of that sweetness that they've added to the drink, the
Mm.
kind of secret formula that they use. So I feel like it's all a matter of this versus that, what's better. So I think on one very popular nutrition podcast, one guy said that, even for kids, Diet Coke is better than fruit juice, which I disagree. Because if I had a choice, if
Like
I was
packaged fruit
outside,
juice, or
yeah, any
okay,
fruit juice,
right?
packaged or anything.
No, not the ones made at
But
home, right?
yeah, I'm not comparing those two right now. I'm just saying,
Okay.
be it packaged or be it homemade.
Mm.
Someone saying that Diet Coke is better than fruit juice for kids because fruit juice has sugar. If I was outside on a hot and sunny day and I had a small child with me and I wanted to get them something cold to drink, I would blindly pick up a fruit juice over a Diet Coke. And
Okay.
it still has less, it still has some kind of nutrients. It has some vitamin C, and if that fiber is retained, it has some fiber, it has
Mm.
some health benefits, versus a Diet Coke which is aspartame or whatever. Why would I give that to a child?
Right.
So it's all, who is the person you're looking at it, who are looking to give it to, what is the situation, and in each situation we decide accordingly, right?
Right.
So some days if I had a choice between a Diet Coke and an alcoholic drink, I may choose something else. So it's just that it depends on what is our goal at that point of time in our life.
No, that makes sense absolutely, because you can't just make a blanket statement that that don't touch this at all or only have this. But no, this thing I've been observing is this: the non-alcoholic market is really flourishing. But what does it do to you? Besides, of course, quenching your thirst or giving you that sense of drinking wine or beer or maybe gin, or so. Besides the flavors, and this is I want to just understand, like, yeah, there is a lot of science to it, and there's an entire conversation we can have about it. But how does it, for someone who enjoys drinking a few beers or a few whiskeys, how does this help them give that up?
No, one is a huge thing is social inclusion.
Hmm.
Because if everybody is at a party and they're drinking something and you're not drinking, you kind of stand out, and you may not want that. Some people don't mind that. And some people are also too much, like, they pester you, hey, you're not drinking anything, and they try to make it seem like a big thing.
Yeah.
uh Whereas it should not be so, right? Everybody has the right to choose what they want to drink, not drink, eat, not eat. It's not like these days, if somebody is fasting and they come to your house for a party or something, they may just end up having diet coke and no food at all, because they're fasting for the day. So I think we have to learn to live our current lives, taking all this into consideration. But coming back to your question, what does it give them? See, it's not giving you a high, but it does give you that satisfaction of sipping something which is very similar in taste.
Okay.
And it also makes you feel included and not someone who's very different from the other people in the room without a glass in their hand.
Mm.
So I think this is a big thing. And then, see, if you're going to a nice restaurant, ordering some good food, and then, you have a nice glass of, I have like a favorite tonic water, and it tastes so good with rosemary and all these things. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I mentally I feel as good as I'm having some fancy glass of wine. Only thing,
Right.
this costs $100. Wine would have cost $500, and this has
Yeah.
no alcohol. But it gives you that satisfaction, right? That emotional aspect of it is fulfilled. That, hey, I'm having a nice drink.
So this awareness of food is definitely, you said your son's generation is more chill about it. They're more aware about it. They're not making a big hoo-ha about it. Um, Again, there are a lot of things that people are becoming aware of. Do you see a shift going forward, just like this, organic generation or the organic revolution? Do you see a time in which alcohol will be replaced or will be demonized as much as, say, sugar or even drugs?
I don't know. I can't predict,
As a
but
doctor, in this field, as someone who spent time in the
I
healthcare
hope so.
systems.
I genuinely hope so.
Mm,
Because if we have normalized something in our generation which was not really good, then it's always a good thing if our next generation realizes the mistake of it, right? Like, uh, 50, 70 years ago, uh, b- kids would be given syrups with alcohol in them for gripe water, like stomach ache and all.
mm,
Like, can you imagine in today's times feeding alcohol syrup to a baby? So we kind of said, boss, that was very wrong. We have to change it. We can't continue like that.
yeah,
So, you know, I also feel like this whole, see, until 17 and a half, your child is a child. And suddenly at 18, he's allowed to drink any quantity of alcohol. How does that make any sense, right?
yeah.
After all, they are just 18. And so that's why these kind of age limits and all, I'm not a big believer in that. And I do hope that our next generation realizes that it's not cool and you don't have to do it, like how smoking has already become uncool. And people do it still, but they realize that it's not making them look in some very, like, they're not looking great with that. That's not a good look on them.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
having a cigarette and looking very fancy and all, that's no longer
That's
the
gone for
look.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
gone. So I'm assuming that
It's more like a curse. You're in the corner in some grimy room in the airport where like there are 50 guys staring out of the
50
window.
guys.
And it's like, oh my God, like,
You don't even have to smoke. You just enter that room and come out.
in
You'll
fact,
have had like three, four,
you hold your breath because it stinks. You come out and like, we
and your
put this,
clothes are stinking.
and
So I feel,
yeah, you're
yeah. So
looked
I
at very
feel,
horribly. Yeah.
I hope alcohol also people realize, and I don't mean that I'm not for prohibition and all that. That'll just make things worse.
Yeah.
But people themselves to realize that, because see, some people do very well with a self-imposed limit. Like
Yeah.
someone like me, I will just have one drink and I will not even bother to look. After that, I'll just be drinking water or something else. But there are people, once they start, they can't stop until they have four, five drinks down. So for those
Hello.
people, maybe then not drinking is a better option for their
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that? Control and drinking?
Yeah.
Never heard those two words in the same sentence. But yeah,
Yeah.
I totally respect that. And jokes apart, I know the importance of it. I know the consequences of it. But it's good to always hear it again and be reassured that it's normalizing it isn't really the healthiest thing to do. But of course, being aware, a lot of people say is the first step, and yeah, I think it's a path that you discover for yourself as opposed to being forced to go somewhere or forced to move to a place where there's no alcohol. I think that doesn't work for most people. We've spoken a lot about the complexities of the world we live in, with people weaponizing their food over others, or celebrating certain habits, or people talking constantly about longevity, or cats being omens for good luck, and various other things. So, with the development of technology and science, and with AI, and we have so many elements which can introduce new aspects into the confusion that we live in. Is there a way in which, as someone who spent so many years writing a blog, writing books, and cherishing the idea of nourishing the human body and mind, is there a way in which we can simplify our lives and not be so carried away by all this knowledge, the misinformation in many cases, and maybe even the aspirations set by certain people who might not even be in reality someone you should look up to?
Yeah, I think, our original life, like what we grew up with, was fairly simple. Like I said, we didn't have so much choice. We just ate what our family ate. We ate when our family ate. So we didn't have so much information overload coming at us. Very rarely would a newspaper carry any such this is good for you, this is bad for you, because these days newspapers pick it up for free from Instagram and social media and print it as if it's gospel. So those days there was nobody writing such things in papers, etc. So that was a simpler time and a good time. Uh, and this time there is information overload. There is information coming from all kinds of people, experts, non-experts, and it's honestly very tough to understand what is the right thing to do for yourself. One, even if you're hyper aware, another, even if you're unaware, right? Like at both ends of the spectrum, you are clueless. Because you know how it is. People say that, oh, he was gymming too hard, he got a heart attack. That
Mm,
day, I posted something on Twitter about having a personal record in deadlifting, and I said, I'm so happy. Then someone is commenting saying, just be careful, people are falling off like leaves. First of all, I didn't understand what is the meaning of this, right? And then it struck me saying, like, be careful, people are falling dead in the gym. I said, wow, that was very comforting and
yeah,
reassuring.
yeah,
So it's these kind of news that gets highlighted,
yeah,
all these extreme news. Like if someone went to the gym every day of their life and lived a long and healthy life, a mobile life where he was walking around till he was 90, that's not news. So
yeah,
I think we should stop falling prey to these kind of things in the media which either highlight or demonize one thing or the other. It could be a habit, it could be a lifestyle, it could be a food, or a diet or anything. So I think the middle path is the way to go. Now, there are certain diets that advocate drinking 30 ml of ghee as soon as you get up in the morning, ghee
mhm,
or coconut oil or anything, like start your day with fat.
right,
Now, I would rather just add 1, 2 spoons of ghee to my food during the day, because after, 2 years, someone may say that it's the first thing in the morning, ghee has led to fatty liver or God knows what. I have no
mm,
idea. But I'm just saying that getting on to such weird habits, that is one way of living a simple life, is to follow something that's moderate and sustainable, and not something extreme and something that could come up with, like, there are people who eat 10 eggs a day,
yeah,
and then there are people who are scared to eat 2 eggs a day, saying, nahi, nahi, cholesterol बढ़ जाएगा. So,
yeah,
like, what is a good thing to do? Eat 2 to 3 eggs in a day. Don't
yeah,
don't look at eating 10 eggs in a day. I think that the middle path is so unglamorous. It's so not written about. It's
yeah,
so not cool. There's no bragging rights. So there's no way to, people don't see any incentive of being on the middle path anymore. And I
yeah,
think that's the simplest way to a good life. So the most important thing, yes, protein, fiber, very important in your meal. And especially Indians, as stats say, 80% of us are protein deficient.
mm,
And especially if you're vegetarian, you have to be really careful. If you're vegan, even more so, be very conscious of